Ben sat on a park bench in the quiet of early winter, a paperback resting open in his lap, though he hadn't turned a page in hours. His coat was frayed, his hands tucked deep into his pockets, a worn duffel bag and thermos at his feet. The late afternoon sun filtered through bare branches, and the cold breeze occasionally lifted the corner of his coat. He wasn't homeless, not quite, just adrift, keeping distance from a home that no longer felt like one since his teenage son passed away 2 years ago. Every day, Nina walked this path home from the library. She'd seen Ben before, always. On the same bench, always quiet, always alone. She'd never spoken to him until this afternoon, when something in the way his body sagged in the cold made her stop. She hesitated, then softly said, "Cold out here, isn't it?" Ben stirred, eyes opening slowly, uncertain if she was mocking him. "Guess I forgot to check the weather," he muttered. She didn't laugh or walk away, just nodded gently, her presence calm, without pity. Ben shifted slightly, not looking at her. "You don't have to do this, whatever this is." His voice was flat, guarded. Nina smiled faintly. "I know, I just thought—" "You're always here. Figured I'd say something." He looked at her, confused, then dismissed it. "You said?" Thanks." She nodded again, didn't argue, just quietly placed a small packet of hand warmers on the bench and continued on her way. Ben watched her leave. The next day Nina passed again. Ben was there, as always. She would have kept walking, but just as she drew near, he said softly, "He used to love this park." She paused, turning slightly toward him. "Your son?" she asked gently. He nodded, still staring forward. He'd race the ducks, named the squirrels. Thought winter made trees braver. Sighed only brave trees could survive with no leaves. His voice was low, more memory than conversation. Nina didn't try to fix it or offer comfort. She simply sat beside him. After a while, she spoke. "My brother used to say rain made the world clean again. He passed 4 years ago. Still wait for rainy days to believe him." They sat like that, in silence. No more words. Just cold wind and quiet understanding. In the days that followed, Ben returned to the bench with a blanket across his lap. He still looked distant, but now he watched the geese, noticed the children riding scooters. One afternoon, he left a thermos of tea on the bench where Nina usually sat before she arrived. The air around him seemed lighter. Not fixed, just a little less heavy. Ben and Nina began sitting together often. No pattern, no plan. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. They traded books. She gave him poetry. He tucked handwritten quotes into the pages she returned. One day he walked her partway home, saying he needed the steps. She smiled, said nothing. It wasn't romance. Just companionship, quiet, grounding, survival in each other's presence. A month later, Nina arrived at the park to find the bench empty. She almost kept walking until she saw a small note wedged between the slats. In Ben's handwriting it read, "Taking the train to visit my sister. Haven't seen her since the funeral. She still thinks brave trees are beautiful. B." Beneath it was a photograph. A boy in a red scarf, laughing beside a frozen pond. Nina held the note and photo to her chest. Then she sat down on the bench, alone but not lonely. The wind brushed gently through the trees. Somewhere nearby, a squirrel rustled in the leaves. Ben sat on the old bench near the edge of the park. His figure hunched slightly, as if bracing against a weight only he could feel. The trees around him were bare, their branches thin and brittle, scratching at the cold sky like tired fingers. A paperback rested open on his lap, but he hadn't turned the page in hours. It wasn't about the book. The act of holding it made him feel like he still belonged to the world somehow, like he hadn't drifted too far. The bench had become his place, not just for resting, but for remembering. He came every day, watched the light shift through the trees, listened to the wind play with the brittle leaves, and let the hours slide past like slow, shallow waves. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't want to. The last conversation that truly mattered had ended with his son's final breath. Nina had passed by that bench every evening for the past year. She worked at the small public library downtown, not far from the park. Her canvas bag, always filled with returned books and tomorrow's stories, bounced gently at her side as she walked. She'd noticed him long before she ever considered speaking to him. Something in the stillness of his posture stayed with her each night after she walked by. She wondered what he was reading. Wondered what he was remembering. That evening was colder than usual. A sharper wind, the sun fading quicker than expected. She saw him there again, coat buttoned wrong, collar stiff in the breeze. His eyes were open but not really seeing. She stopped, then stepped closer. "Cold out here, isn't it?" she asked. Ben turned his head slightly, like waking from a long, slow dream. For a moment there was tension in his eyes, like he wasn't sure if she was mocking him, or if he was meant to respond. "Guess I forgot to check the weather," he muttered. Thought. She didn't smile, didn't leave. Just nodded, still there. He looked away. "You don't have to do this, whatever this is." "I know," she said softly. "You're just, always here. Figured I'd say something." His eyes flicked toward her, then away. "You said it, thanks." She nodded again and turned to go. Just before she walked out of reach, she placed a small packet of hand warmers on the bench beside him. Not a grand gesture. Just something small, quiet, kind. Ben stared at the packet long after she left. He didn't open it. Not yet. The next day she came again. Didn't expect much. Didn't even expect him to look up. But as she passed, he said, almost under his breath, "He used to love this park." She paused. "Your son?" she asked. He nodded slowly. He'd chase the ducks, try to outsprint the wind. Thought trees in winter were the bravest thing in the world. Said they survived with nothing. Just stood there and waited. He didn't cry. Didn't need to. The silence that followed said more than tears ever could. Nina sat beside him. Not speaking, after a while, she said, "My brother used to say rain made the world clean again. He's been gone 4 years. I still wait for rainy days to prove him right." They sat together until the sun dipped low, casting shadows long and blue across the path. It wasn't comfort, not exactly, just shared grief. Quiet understanding. In the days that followed, something softened. Ben returned to the bench as usual, but now with a blanket over his lap. A different book in hand. He started noticing the little things again. Geese honking in the pond. A boy wobbling past on a scooter, the way frost clung to the grass. One afternoon before Nina arrived, Ben placed a small thermos on the spot where she usually sat. She found it, smiled to herself, and took a sip. It was warm, spiced tea. Slightly too much sugar, but sweet in the right way. They began to sit together more regularly. They didn't make plans, they just showed up. Some days they spoke, some days they didn't. Nanya lent him a poetry book. Ben returned it with a scrap of paper tucked inside, a quote written in careful, looping penmanship. "We do not heal by forgetting, we heal by remembering without pain." One afternoon, Ben walked her halfway home. She didn't ask why, just smiled and said, "The extra steps are good for both of us." There was no romance between them. Only something gentler. Companionship, witness, proof that even quiet, broken people still deserve to be seen. Then, one chilly afternoon in early spring, Nina walked into the park and saw the bench was empty. She waited, looked around, checked the paths, sat down. Her fingers touched something wedged between the slats. A folded piece of paper. It read, "Taking the train to visit my sister. Haven't seen her since the funeral. She still thinks brave trees are beautiful." Tucked inside was a photo, a boy with dark curls laughing beside a frozen pond. A red scarf trailing in the air behind him. Nina smiled, tears gathering but not falling. She pressed the note to her heart, tucked the photo into her book, and leaned back. She sat there for a long time, watching the wind move through the trees. Alone, but no longer lonely.